In this book edition episode of the Crit House, we are joined by internationally acclaimed photographer Rania Matar, a Guggenheim Fellow whose powerful portraits explore the universality of girlhood, womanhood, and identity across cultures. Born and raised in Lebanon and now based in the United States, Rania brings a deeply personal, cross-cultural lens to her work, photographing women and girls, both in the Middle East and America. Her images have been exhibited in major museums worldwide, including the MFA in Boston, the Carnegie Museum of Art, and the Amon Museum of American Art. She is the author of 4 celebrated books, including She, L'Enfant Femme, and A Girl in Her Room. Today, we'll talk with Rania about the inspirations, challenges, and intimate connections behind her photography, as well as the stories woven into her latest book, Where Do I Go? 50 Years Later.
So now you have published 4 books, and you are in the midst of working on a 5th right now. And so this is the thing that I like most about doing this segment of the Crit House, is talking to photographers as they're in the process of coming up with their new book. And I'm excited to talk to you about that. Tell us a little bit about the book that you're working on and where you are in the process.
The book is titled Where Do I Go? 50 years later. It started after the Beirut explosions in August 2020. I went to Lebanon. My son wanted to go volunteer, and I went with him, and I thought I would photograph the destruction. And I realized I wasn't interested in destruction. I was fascinated with the women who were working in the reconstruction and cleaning the debris and all of that. And I started photographing them. And I realized also what was happening. There was a big wave of women who wanted to find a way to leave the country. And I was that age when I left in 1984. I'm dating myself, but it feels like history keeps repeating itself. So it's like left because of the Lebanese civil war to come study here, and things never got better, and I'm still here. And these women were trying to leave. So a lot of my friends who didn't leave, all of a sudden their daughters were scrambling to get out. So in some way, I saw myself in these women, and it turned into a project. And every time I went to Lebanon, I kept finding more women to collaborate with. And it's a very collaborative process having to do with their relationship to Lebanon. And then the 50 years later came about because this project went on a little longer than I thought. In 2025, which is this year, is the 50th anniversary of the Civil War that started in 1975. This is a word that defined who I am, where my life turned out to be. And here we are 50 years later and still dealing with similar issues. So the work is very personal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So where are you in the process of putting this book together? You've conceptualized it, and it sounds like you have the story at least percolating in your head. What's the phase you're in the actual bookmaking process?
Oh, it's more than percolating. I feel like it's done now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not the book is not done. The project, I'm at a point where the book is pretty much designed. It's being published by a publishing house called KAF Books, KAPH. They focus quite a bit on work from the Middle East and the Arab world. I felt like that was so appropriate for that work. The woman who founded it, Noor Salame, is based between Paris, Dubai, and Beirut. So the book could have a good distribution in that part of the world. And we decided to also translate all the text to Arabic as well. So it will be in English and Arabic. So it feels like it all is coming together beautifully in that sense. And it's being co-published, very importantly, by the Eskenazi Museum from Indiana University, which is fantastic because I've never had that wonderful opportunity. I usually have had to raise money for my books and
Yeah.
that way. And here is the museum is basically co-publishing the book, and there'll be a museum show that would accompany the book in March 2026.
Oh, congratulations on that. That sounds fantastic. So the images are all shot, and it's laid out and it's designed. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, Yes, but of course we are over budget, and this is where we are right now. The big question is, do we tweak it? So this is where we are. As of right now, I'm very excited about where the book is. It has a lot of images, more than any of my other books, and maybe we would have to cut back images. I hope not. So we're having the conversation in the next couple of weeks. But we also, what's making the book very unique for me is I met this collector of vintage photography, Lebanese vintage photography. His name is George Bustani, and he's actually related to my husband, but I didn't know him, and we met by accident. And he wrote a beautiful, very poetic essay, and we're using some of the images in the book. So it's contextualizing some of the work and what in Lebanon during and pre-war. So it's making the book pretty complex in a way. So I have three writers plus the curator. One is Kim Gattas, who is a journalist, but also who wrote a book called The Black Wave. And she writes for the Financial Times, and she wrote a book about the Middle East and how the whole thing shifted in 1978, 79 with the Iranian Revolution. She is contextualizing the book in the terms of a history, but she's also telling her own story about living through the Civil War when she had to cross the Green Line to go from West Beirut to East Beirut and back. So we have images of her doing that. The other writer is Georges Bustani, who contributed the pictures and is writing very poetically about the book. And the third writer, which came by accident, is a woman the age of the woman I'm photographing, who is an excellent writer and is writing so she is kind of the voice of these women with that text. One more thing is we have a few quotes from Etel Adnan, who is a famous Lebanese poet and painter. And I think they add something to the book. Of course, the curator added an essay as well. So sorry, that's a bit long. You
No,
could take
it's
whatever you need out of that.
you said it's complex. It really sounds like it because your previous books are they don't have they're just not just, but they have your imagery. I don't Now you're bringing in historical images. How are you weaving that through? Like, what was your
Yeah.
mindset?
Well, it's a bit complicated, and we kept trying. So there are a couple of images appearing within the book, paired with some of my images. And then we're hoping to have a booklet towards the end of the book with George's essay, who literally paired up some of my pictures with his pictures and a few pages of just his images. So because for a while, it was going to be a bit confusing to have one-to-one. So
Right.
there's one that starts at the beginning with the woman looking to her, looking one way, and there's a vintage picture of a younger girl looking at her. And for me, that's an important start because it's almost me looking at my younger self in that.
Oh.
And the last image is a vintage image of a boat. And so there's something that's pretty poetic and meaningful about these images.
So tell me a little bit about how you go about producing these books. I mean, you're a photographer, right? And how involved do you get with the design process and the sequencing and the editing, or do you how do you hold hands with the people who are designing it?
I was trained as an architect, if you know that. So I am a designer at heart. So I
Okay,
might
all
be a
right.
bit of pain to work with. But every book is different. Right now, I'm working with a designer from Madrid who's actually married to a Lebanese guy. So she works very well with Arabic letters and calligraphy as well. But also, she was great because when I went to Photo London, she came and met with me in person. And I had a show in Madrid last month and I met her in person there. So we've had a few meetings and there is a lot of back and forth. So I'm very involved. And what's wonderful when you work with somebody is when you have this constant back and forth. Just like when I'm photographing the women, there's like this back and forth. I'm not just photographing them, they're giving me something back, right? So
Yeah,
nothing would happen without that collaboration. And I feel on
right.
another level, that's what's happening with the design.
Yeah.
Like
And
I had
and
an idea of the sequence, and she kind of would say this works better here or not. And then we have inserts of text, and then I don't know this stuff that you have to count in certain numbers of signatures for the text to be in. So she's guiding me in a lot of things like that. So we're really working very well together.
Okay. Well, so again, this is your fifth book. What have you learned of the bookmaking process right when you're doing this book?
Yeah, it feels like a less classical designed book. So I'm learning with that. Like my other books, typically you had the pictures and you had the texts at the end.
Yeah.
And this one we're working, and always like you always had a picture on the cover. So we're going into something as looking at the book as an object. And so the text is going to be on different paper within the book. And so I'm learning about how do you deal with that? Like, do we have a big image that could come that's behind the text? So you never see the image really. So we're working with different paper, different size paper. So I'm learning that. And I resisted not having an image on the cover, but now I kind of like this because it makes you want, I don't know. So that was something the designer suggested, and I kept resisting it till she told me option, and it showed me options. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I'm learning things, and it's nice to be open, and it's nice. I love the book sheet that we did with Radius,
Yes.
and so I kept bringing that book, and at some point I had the publisher and the designer tell me, you have to put that book away now. Another book.
It's a new book. It's a new book.
Book. So I did that, and I'm glad because it opened me to new possibilities in a way.
Also, tell me a little bit about the process that you go through in publication. So this is a like how do you promote it? You're talking to me, which is a tiny little show, but once this gets out in the world, what do you do to make sure that it gets seen? Because I'm sure the publisher is involved, but I mean, essentially, it rides on your shoulders to make sure it gets out. How do you carry that?
Well, for one, I work with a gallery in Lebanon. I work with a gallery in Boston. I have a couple gallery in Europe. I mean, I would love to have shows that coincide with the book, to have book signings, but also often the book helps sell images as well.
Right.
I will have the Eskenazi show, which is kind of a solo museum show. So that would have its own kind of also another layer of hopefully promoting the book. But I really found that social media is quite a bit the thing now. I mean, it's like lately, every time I go on social media, it's all about politics, and I'm finding that exhausting. So I love it when I'm seeing my friends promoting exhibitions or books, and I feel like it's still good for that, right?
Yeah, but even that is sort of, it becomes more complex than it used to be even just a couple of years ago. So if you're looking at Instagram or, now you've got to do reels and you've got to do all these like things and post so often, and it's like a different animal. Like social media promotion is, I mean, it's annoying. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I feel a bit schizophrenic in a way. I mean, I'm from Lebanon, from Palestinian origins, and I'll be promoting my book as the situation in the Middle East is not great, as we all know. But
yeah,
I feel like in some way, I hope my work addresses some of I mean, it's helping humanize this part of the world, and it's showing the beauty, the strength, and the resilience of women, the power of women. So I don't know how I went on a tangent, but it makes me kind of put it a little bit in that context. And
yeah,
but you're right, it is more complicated. And the thing I'm learning is sometimes I was sharing maybe too many images on social media, and now I'm trying not to as much because I do want people to pick up the book, and I don't want
yeah.
everything to have been seen somehow. So you're right. It's pretty complex, and I don't think I got it down to the best way to deal with that. I don't know.
I'm not sure that there is a best way of doing it, but I know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get I mean, you've got to produce the book, well, first of all, produce the images, produce the book, and then you have to help it live out in the world and sort of it's almost like you're moving a child out into the world and making sure they're prepared and are seeing the right people and we're in the right place. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
little
and
thing,
and
right?
like another thing, for example, I'm realizing how many of the books, sorry, Another thing is I'm realizing how many of the books I have is like going to APAD, to Paris Photo, to all these photo fairs. Now they have book sections, and I love that. So
Yeah.
I know, for example, that my publisher already is signed up for Paris Photo. Now the thing is, I'm not sure my book will be ready for Paris Photo, but if it's not this year, maybe next year. But to go to these events as well and to promote a book signing there is great. So I think there are different ways of doing it. I tend to send every once in a while like a blast email. I mean, these stress me out so much, but I feel like I have to do them about like shows or whatever. So I'm also keeping a low profile now. Hopefully, I could just start promoting the book when it's getting closer to it.
A couple more questions. So you mentioned earlier on that there are a lot of pictures. Now that can mean a lot of different things. For me, that's like 50 pictures. But like, what's and I don't know. I know it's not final, but like, what's the range of images that you think are going to end up in the book?
Like right now, we're closer to 130.
Okay, so that's a lot.
And
Wow.
no, it's a lot. We might have to cut that. And every time I try to think, the thing is, the sequence is flowing so beautifully that you take one out and it's like, ugh,
Blows it all up. Yeah.
not working. So, and the designer did a nice job, like the pictures, and I think that's important in a book to have different size images so that so it doesn't feel relentless. Like they're not all in the same spot in the same page,
Right.
on the same side of the page, the same size, so that it's just one page after the other. And then the fact that we have the text in between on different paper and different size that breaks it, hopefully will help. But we still might have to cut back images.
Well,
You know what's happening though? I'm attached to all these women as well. It's hard
oh,
for me.
right.
I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we can't take this one out.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because with my photography, I get attached to images, but I don't know the people. I'm just I'm anonymous on the street, but you have a relationship, and that
Yeah,
that complicates the idea of editing an image out. So that makes it harder.
I know. I'm like, how am I gonna tell her your image is not in the book?
Well, I'm sure that's going to be hard. Yeah, so you mentioned you're not raising money for the book, and that's one of the challenges with people. You can either like self-publish or you can go to a publisher, and that's a different process because there's that fundraising component. Talk a little bit about that, the difference between what you have done before and where you are right now.
Yeah, for all my other books, I had to raise money for the book. My last two books, which is L'Enfant Femme and She, what I did is I offered the limited edition portfolio. So it was like I picked 12 images from the book that I printed in 16 by 20, and I made a beautiful like clamshell box that went with that. And I reached out directly to museums and collectors. So I personally don't like the funding sites. Sometimes they're needed,
Mhm.
but I thought if I could do it by reaching out directly to people that have supported my work, I would do that. So I was very lucky that I was able to raise money for those, and I'm happy to send you a couple of images of the portfolios. But for me, that was a nice way of doing it, and so this time it's kind of a gift that I don't have to do that, but also what's happening this time, there are more people involved in the book. Usually it was me and the designer or the publisher, like at Radius, designer and publisher was the same person, which was David Schicky. With this work now, there's the publisher, there's the designer, and there's the museum. So as a result, you have more people sitting in on the meetings. The museums have been wonderful in letting me deal with the design without getting too involved, which is a gift, but also they are funding the book. So, but I found the portfolio piece, if photographers have collectors or interested people in their work, it's kind of an elegant way to do it. And the cool thing, the portfolio ends up in great collections, you know?
Well, it's also, I think, a testament to where you have come in your career as a photographer and as a bookmaker, because now that would be much harder to do on your first book because people don't know you and they wouldn't, you wouldn't have you. So you've generated that audience, you've generated that interest in the work that's coming out. That it really is quite a testament to what you have done in your career.
Thank you. I mean, my other books I had offered, I didn't know that yet. So I had offered some prints, some workshops, and whatever, and it worked out. But I always resisted kind of, I mean, like, I don't want to go and offer, okay, for $5 you get a postcards. I mean, it's just daunting for me what happens on the other side of it
Yeah,
if I have to send
right.
like 1 million postcards and sign them, and you know. So it was maybe a bit of laziness, but I was grateful that it worked out. Also,
Um,
find like, people like to help each other, like even
yes.
with or even like with the girl in her room, the publisher, we offered, and Radius did that with we offered a lot of books for pre-sale, and that's very helpful,
Right, right.
that
Well,
as well.
I'm glad you talked about that because it's an interesting part of the process, and it's really one of the challenges. And anyone, whether they're at your level at your point in your career, or somebody who's who's way back, sort of, you know, just trying to figure it out right now. Knowing that and understanding that and trying to figure out the best way to just pay for all these things that need to be paid for is good to know. Thanks.
The key things when people do this and we raise all the money, and I always tell photographers, because many people don't, make sure you get enough books. You raise the money for the books, get your copies,
Right,
you know?
right, right,
So,
right.
I mean, I like having my own copies. If I have local book signings, I could just take them but I want to be able to send a copy to this museum or offer this book to somebody, or to give me some independence with some books. So I always tell people, ask for at least like 200 books. If you're raising money, you should be able to get books for that, right?
Totally,
Or
totally.
300 books, however many you could store.
Yeah. The last question we asked folks on this edition of the Crit House is, where we're talking about books, is for you to recommend for our viewers a book that everyone should know about. Have you thought about that? Is there a book that all our folks should know?
I actually love this question because it gave me so much to think about. And I'm realizing, because I'm working on a book now, I'm looking so much at the book as an object. So
Yeah.
sometimes there are books that I'm loving as books, but not that I don't like the work, but it's not the work that I'm drawn to as much as others. And other books where I love the work, but the book is more plain. So it's kind of an interesting question to answer, and that could change tomorrow. But like
Absolutely.
right now, there's a couple of books, because I told you I'm going to have a hard time. But the one I love, kind of, I mean, just because of the way my book is coming along, it's Richard Moss, and it's called Broken Spectre. And it's by Loose Joints. And the reason I love it is I love the abstractness of the cover, which is
Wow. It's
for
beautiful.
the first time I'm going for, and I love red. So this has been inspiring to me right now. And another thing that I loved, and again, I'm talking about the book as an object more than
Yeah.
the actual work. It's kind of, even though the work is beautiful, but I bought it because I love the book. And I love the different texture of the paper. And as we're using that as well, and I think that's pretty cool. So you have some pictures that are on actual, like the thick paper, and some that are on loose, much thinner paper. And
Oh,
I love
interesting.
that. I love that. The other thing is there's a little booklet in there.
Oh, pull out. Yeah.
It pull out. And I'm doing some, I mean, the reason I'm drawing it, I picked this book is because we're doing something similar with the vintage, but I don't want it to pull out because I always tend to lose those things. So
Right.
what we're hoping to put it is to attach it to the back cover, to the inside of the back cover. But I like the fact that it feels like an object with the way it is. I thought that was beautiful.
Love it. Thank you for the recommendation. I hadn't heard of it, and I'm looking forward
Well,
to taking
I'm
a look
going to jump
myself.
in because there's a book I love. I love the work of more, more traditional, and I discovered that at Photo London. It's by Ghost Book, and it's Lydia Goldblatt. But I found the photos very poetic. So this was interesting because you asked me that. I'm like, oh, one is I'm more drawn to the images. One, I'm more drawn to the object of the book, and I find that to be. I love it when the book becomes its own object as well.
Yeah,
So
no, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I honestly, I have that same thing, but I had not thought of it in the same way. There are some books that I go to just because I need to see what's inside, and sometimes it's experiencing the book in a different way. So I love that. Thanks.
I hadn't thought of it till you asked me if my favorite book, and I'm like, wow, you know what? That's an interesting question because anyway. So that's kind of.
Well, Rania Matar, thank you so much for joining us again in the Crit House and talking about your new book. The title is again?
50 years later, where do I go? And just a quick thing, the where do I go? The title came because we saw a graffiti on a wall that said in Arabic, Lawain Ruh, where do I go? It says Lawain on one corner, on one side of the corner, and Ruh, and the woman I was with kind of threw herself on that wall. I'm like, oh my God, that's my title.
Oh, wow.
So it started from there.
Was that the image that you wanted for the cover when you were holding to that? Because that sounds like it's an image, a cover image.
I wanted that to the cover. I mean, I had to say the cover went in a direction that I wasn't expecting, and I'm excited about it because I feel like I got out of my comfort zone, but it's kind of cool.
Well, Rania Matar, again, thank you for joining us on the Crit House. It is always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I hope that was useful.
It was perfect. And thank you all for watching the Crit House.